Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is. Today I'm going to be talking about the Aztecs from chapter 11. We are in period 3 and we are dealing with the Aztec development and rule in the 13, 14, and very early 1500s. Today's presentation is going to be in the form of a grapes. The reason why I'm using this type of graphic organizer, this type of approach, is you'll be expected to do the same thing on your own for the Inca. And then obviously if you have the Inca and then you have the Aztecs, you've done grapes for them both, you could just assume you're going to be doing some DCs. So just a little bit. Right now we are not talking about the northern part of North America here. This is where I have already generalized. It's very tribal in a sense. Any sort of large coalition is still pales in comparison to what you see in Central America. We've already talked about the Yucatan Peninsula. We've talked about the Maya and, of course, their collapse and the questions surrounding their collapse. Today, we're going to move here. We're moving to modern-day Mexico City, in and around where the Aztec heart of their empire was. So the Toltecs controlled much of the region of Mexico that is down here, and even bringing it all the way down towards the Yucatan. So this is going to be an area that was already settled, already conquered, already controlled. So let's not look at the Aztecs as the first people to make a decision to choose to settle, control, and even develop empire and civilization here. But what we will talk about is their success at it. So back here is Mexico City. Mexico City, you can see the water routes here. Mexico City is what it is because of its near access to water. I'd like to introduce you here to Lake Texcoco. It is a lake you absolutely should master by name. Now, the people that settle this region eventually that are called the Aztecs, at one time they were called the Mexica. So yes, the Mexica, thus Mexico, the Mexica were people looking for a place to settle, looking for a place to flourish, obviously looking for access to water, and the concept of an agrarian society was all right. So they just needed the right location. Do remember that sitting here around Lake Texcoco were other societies, other civilizations, other city-states and powerful peoples. So just the Mexico are just one of many trying to use the benefits of Lake Texcoco. Do understand now, let's compare. Lake Texcoco is more like the Great Lakes versus our local Blue Marsh. When you look across most of Lake Texcoco, you can't see the other end. So yes, you could absolutely have multiple city-state civilizations around it. Eventually, Lake Texcoco, right here, has an island called Tenochtitlan. I have the phonetic pronunciation there. They have Tenochtitlan here. It's an island, and that is going to be the home of the Aztecs. Now, eventually, the Aztecs will expand, and create an empire, but this is going to be their home. You can understand that a home on an island provides protection. A home on an island provides access to water. But of course, as you're going to see in our video, Engineering an Empire, a home on an island is going to have some struggles. So Engineering an Empire is going to be a video clip we're going to watch in class, though it is 40 minutes. We'll just watch a little bit of it, probably closer to 12 minutes. Feel free to watch the video online. Now, one aspect of geography that can't be missed, and this is possibly a visual that's going to be on your AP test, is CHINAMPAS. Alright, so right here we have Lake Texcoco. The question then is, how are the Aztecs going to feed themselves? And one theme in AP World absolutely is, how has man handled his environment? How has he succeeded at handling the environment? How has he struggled in handling the environment, where the environment won? You can then extend it to what has man done that has ruined the environment. So let's just use some examples. Chinampas is an example in the Aztec Empire of overcoming odds. You're going to see that the terrace farming that the Chinese have used and the Inca use is an example of overcoming the environment. Building agrarian societies on hillsides is pretty impressive. Then you can look at the Maya, and the Maya's overuse of the soil will eventually lead to soil erosion, possibly one of the multiple reasons for the degradation of their society. So here's Chinampas. So I'm going to talk more about Chinampas in class too, and it's in the video, but here is a Chinampas. Some people call them floating gardens. They weren't floating. What you would do is you would take some posts and you would build out an outline and then weave in some material and then backfill it in with mud, typically dredged from here, feces, other agricultural products, just any dirt and mud that you could. Now, once you've created these weaved in Chinampas, do you see them all? You now have an extremely fertile soil. So on these Chinampas, they're already self-irrigated. You could actually yield harvests every few months versus many societies where it was 2-3 times a year. Now, why do Chinampas matter? Well, it's an example of man overcoming the agricultural odds that he was dealt. You could also add on to that is because of the great produce from the Chinampas, the Inca were allowed to feed themselves heartily. This, of course, if you go back to Paleolithic, Neolithic, allows them to have specialization of labor. So because of Chinampas, we have a grand empire with a very divergent faith, massive construction, powerful military. You even have schools. You have a bit of everything because the people could feed themselves. Do I feel Chinampas has a great chance of being on the AP test? Darn right. All right? Cool. Now, let's move on to religion. Remember, we're doing grapes. We've done geography and its importance. Now we're doing religion. The people of the Aztec Empire were polytheists, all the way going back to the Toltecs, the Olmecs, and kind of these faiths built upon each other. They had regional gods. They had distinct beliefs and traditions. They were animists, so they prayed to a sun god. They were anthropomorphic, so their gods took human-like forms. In many ways, they're very similar to the Native Americans of the United States, and of course, the Aryan gods that are the foundation of Hinduism. Now, Tlaloc is the rain god. I don't know why I ever brought him into this slideshow, and he's always there, and I don't delete him. Let's just say most important, I like to talk about Quetzalcoatl. Do remember, it took me a year of teaching this course the first time to actually master how to pronounce Quetzalcoatl. So here's Quetzalcoatl. He is the feathered serpent god, the war god. And yes, when you have a god of war, you could already say to yourself, then the Aztecs must have been warlike people. And you're going to learn today, they were. Now, the feathered serpent god has a gigantic headdress. Now, this gigantic headdress will come back to play later on. I might also tell you about it now, though. So eventually, you're going to have the conquistadors come in and around the early 1500s. When the conquistadors come, people like Hernan Cortez have these gigantic helmets with these beautiful, feathery, flowery things going on top. So when Montezuma II, we'll just refer to him as Montezuma, hears that he's in the neighborhood, Montezuma doesn't say, wow, a conquistador is here to conquer me and take everything I have. He says, oh, look at this. Quetzalcoatl's here. And he literally invites Quetzalcoatl into Tenochtitlan. And I think I'll stop at that, but you could imagine how the rest plays out. Now, Huitzilopochtli is extremely important. Now, Quetzalcoatl's famous because of the whole conquistador thing. Huitzilopochtli is very important because he's the sun god, and you are going to see a lot of sacrifices made in his name, in his honor, because the Aztecs believed that if you did not have sacrifice, such as human sacrifice, the sun would not come out tomorrow. Yes, I have a version of that song that involves human sacrifice. So little orphan Annie would turn in her grave. You can see down at the bottom, we are going to eventually watch a video. All right. Let's move on to, oh, I didn't want to click on that. Let's move on to politics. The politics of the Aztecs started out as city-state politics, where city-states that banded together in any sort of alliance would succeed over the other city-states. I'm not going to sit there and say it's the same comparison with Mesopotamia. Just understand, at different times and different eras, there was different powerful city-states in Mesopotamia. You could say that in and around the Lake Texcoco, similar things happened. Eventually, the Aztecs will be one of a triple alliance, and its Codal will become the first emperor of the Aztec Empire using this triple alliance. Now, how will he lead? Here's your list. He will lead by being a conqueror, understanding that you don't live in harmony with the other city-states. You go and show force to those other city-states. State projects, meaning he built using state power, state funds, and state forces, roads and CHINAMPAS. He liked to infuse temples into politics, such as he was a big fan of spreading myths of Huitzilopochtli, because if he can make himself to be almost like a Justinian person, where you are the political and religious leader of your people, you just have that much more power. He doesn't want the priestly class to have their own individual power. He wants to kind of suck that in. Now, I get to use the word tribute, which is awesome because I literally just watched Hunger Games the other day with Jack. So, conquering state projects, infusing religion. Another way that the Aztecs, in and around its Codal and then afterwards, solidified power is demanding tribute. Now, what would typically happen is an Aztec force would intimidate a city-state. The city-state would be told, you may live in peace and harmony with the Aztecs as long as you acknowledge their power and you pay a tribute. Now, there was a variety of different types of tribute. The most common type of tribute is food, because every single city-state produced some sort of agrarian product. It would be nice to have more and more and more. And if all that goes to Tenochtitlan, if you want to call it District 1, then District 1 will be extremely well fed. And like the people of the Hunger Games, they could all have really weird faces, really weird hair, really weird outfits, and then just lay waste to people. Now, another type of tribute is people. And this is really cool. It's really messed up. So what you would do is you would demand tribute. And one form of tribute could be your young, vigorous men. These men would be donated from that city-state to Tenochtitlan. And of course, the Tenochtitlan would use them as part of their human sacrifice ritual. Now, this obviously is going to weaken taking the best, the brightest, and the strongest. It's the warriors of these city-states. It's going to weaken those city-states, making the Tenochtitlan just even stronger. Eventually, there's going to be hundreds of city-states, millions of people, and Tenochtitlan itself is going to have 250,000 people in it, which is going to be larger than any city in Europe when the conquistadors come in 1520. Now, if you want to backtrack to my first slide, remember, this is only 200 years, and the Aztecs only really succeeded in solidifying power in about 100 years. Now, their fall is going to be quick because unlike the fall of the Maya we don't know much about, we got the fall of the Aztecs is because of conquering, because of the conquistadors. Now we're moving on to economics. I'm enjoying a cup of coffee. I'm sorry. I keep taking these pauses. Um, this visual kind of shows you where Tenochtitlan is, okay? It shows you the Triple Alliance. It shows how it has worked with other major empires. And when you put it all together, this is the Aztec land. The Aztecs do even have some forces, influence going down into the Yucatan. And they are connected to the Inca, but not by conquest, just by trade. Now, the economics of the Aztec was state wealth and all the tributes given to allowed for a lot of large public works, which is in some of those videos I've been showing you. They did have a class-based system where military service and landed nobility thrived. So absolutely, the Aztec Empire did not necessarily have a civil service system like you'll see in China. They had it more of a European style. Whoever owned the land, whoever owned the area, they were at the top of the hierarchy. Those people at the top of the hierarchy always made sure that their strongest son or two entered military service, thus would enter another form of power in the Aztec Empire. And this type of society obviously is going to create a very large, needy class at the bottom. Now, one thing like in Europe that's developing here in the Aztec Empire is the merchant class, the Pochteca. The Pochteca basically are the reason why there's connections with the Mayan, with the North, and of course with the Inca. Because what they did is they brought in the luxury goods and food goods from around North and South America. But the Aztecs were powerful enough in all of their city-states and, of course, Tenochtitlan to help kind of control this, to make sure that things were taxed, that the nobility had their first pick at these goods, and that when they went to market, it was on the terms of the state. So this is not an example at all of pure capitalism. But I do want to acknowledge that the Pochteca, this merchant class, was expanding more and more. And at some point would be part of the higher part of this class-based system in the Aztec Empire. Which leads us, to the next slide, social structure. So right here you see royalty. These are going to be the people connected to the kings of the different city-states, let alone the kings of the Aztecs, Tenochtitlan. The nobility, these are going to be your landed, the wealthy, the people that controlled the land, the warriors. Now, down here is your commoners and slaves. And of course, when you have a tribute system, there's going to be a lot of them. The Pochteca were blending in between right here. Where's their role? They're probably the most successful commoners if you wanted to look at it. Because of what they brought and what they offered, they were very protected commoners by the nobility, and they even were treasured by the warrior and royalty. So, the Kapuli is a term that is going to be new, just like the Pochteca, and these are terms I'd like you to learn at least for now, right? They may not appear on the AP test, but the AP test will acknowledge social structure and economic structure. The Kapuli is an early social order in the Aztec city-states where every family had a tradition of doing a job and passed it down in family lines. For example, storekeepers. So the storekeepers were a family, and they passed it down to the next family. And of course, storekeepers were a social class in themselves, working with other social storekeepers to make sure that they were banded in some sort of manner. There is going to be some sort of hereditary link to this work, like I just mentioned. Now, eventually, the Kapuli system, which was extremely powerful in every Aztec city-state, is going to be broken down as there was a gateway to more powerful opportunities by being in military service and trying to obtain aristocracy. So you can see that the Kapuli existed, and it will be broken down over time. Now, there was mandatory education in the Aztec Empire, and it was typically led by the individual Kapuli. Individual Kapuli loved to educate their men, and in both trades and military service. Making sure that some people were learned while some people were trained is a great way to help create social order. So, from a top down, it's great, but also from a bottom up. Any sort of mandatory education allows people opportunities to move classes. So now we start to see the Aztecs moving towards a merit based system. And I contend it might have gotten better, it might have thrived if it weren't for the conquest pending. Now, because of their lack of access to this mandatory education, because of the hard work it took to take maize and make maize a usable, what would you call that? Food stuff, women failed to thrive in the Aztec Empire. I think I have one last one. Oh, two more, sorry. I went with the accomplishment lace last, even though it doesn't really spell out grapes, because I think this is a great summation. And we're at 21 minutes, so I apologize. Some of this stuff, oh, I apologize, I forgot I did not have last one. I'm not re-shooting this video. So, they did a lot of things in Tenochtitlan, some such as building this, feeding themselves, education. You'll see in the book there's math and science. It's also brought into our videos in class. Temple Mayor is a starring component of one of our videos. I do have the anti-accomplishments at the bottom. They did not work with bronze, they never worked with iron, and they never developed the wheel. So in some ways, they never were able to even go to that next level. And truly, that next level might have helped them stop the conquistador and their invasion, because the conquistadors will come with their guns, germs, and steel. And no matter what the Aztecs had, which is pretty impressive social structure, economic structure, political power and unification, and the ability to feed themselves and all this, it doesn't matter when the Aztecs face guns, germs, and steel coming in with Cortez very soon. All right, see you later. Have a great one.